Hello everybody, it's me Scoop, and Reality is weird. If you haven't seen or heard of Reality, I don't really blame you. It shadow aired on HBO and was later released on Max in early 2023, and I haven't seen or heard anyone talking about it. It follows the real-life story of NSA agent Reality Winner, insane name by the way, as she's questioned by the FBI during a search of her home over possibly mishandled sensitive information. Now that sounds really, really interesting, but sadly, this movie's pretty fucking boring. The film sticks incredibly close to reality, as it relies heavily on the FBI's audio tapes from the investigation. Credit where it's due, it's a really interesting idea trying to keep the dialogue as close to the real-life audio as possible, but this movie shows why it's kind of a bit of a failed experiment. The way I would describe it, and I know this is a wild take, but it's kind of like the opposite of Smiling Friends, where in Smiling Friends, you have this group of like wacky animated characters in insane environments, but they're having this really realistic and relatable dialogue, which makes it really endearing, you know?
I am so sorry, Gwimbly.
It's just wrong, man. Mr. Millipede was like a damn brother to me.
But then you have Reality, where you have three really, really basic, simplistic characters in a really basic and simplistic setting, doing like totally normal small talk about their pets and their food shopping and whatever. But the whole movie just has this really strange vibe to it for no reason. For example, Reality has a dog and a cat, and this movie proves why dogs are just infinitely better than cats. Reality takes her little dog outside and puts it in like a little dog cage, and it's fine and it's chilling and whatever. But for the rest of the, literally like throughout the entire rest of the movie, the FBI agents keep talking about the cat's on top of the bed, the cat's under the bed, the cat's back on top of the bed, the cat is back under the bed, the cat is really fat.
The cat, is the cat still under the bed?
She came out, I was like, whoa.
Yeah, she'll snatch bread right out of my mouth.
What is going on? What are you doing?
So there's really only three characters in this whole movie. You have Sydney Sweeney playing the NSA agent who's infuriated about Donald Trump's election, Reality Winner, and then you have Marchant Davis as Agent Taylor and Josh Hamilton as Agent Garrick, playing, obviously, two of the FBI agents doing the search warrant on her house and questioning her during the search. There are a few other FBI agents running around, but they all go unnamed and uncredited, which is a little strange. It's just part of the strange tone of this whole movie, but anyway. Performance-wise, from the FBI guys, I don't really have too much to say. Hamilton is giving off a lot of dad energy, so I went to go check his other work, and he was actually the dad in 8th grade, which is a great movie. You should definitely go watch it. But besides that, nothing really too mentionable. Marchant Davis, though, he has some raw-ass aura in this film. Man is practically bursting out of that Under Armour golf shirt, and he just does this he's really great at bringing the tone of this movie back down and highlighting the seriousness of reality situation. So I'd really like to see this actor in another movie where he actually has something to work with, because the few moments where he does need to bring that tone in, he does a fantastic job of it. Sydney Sweeney is also doing a pretty good job in this movie. I think most people would agree her talents lie in the more dramatic moments of her having to scream and cry, and also flirt. Anyone But You proves she also has some pretty good comedic timing, but I think a lot of people agree with me when I say that her usual, just like, typical little unimportant dialogue that any movie role is gonna have, she tends to deliver those lines pretty awkwardly.
Hallie, stop. That's not me anymore. I'm free now. I'm deprogrammed.
But I'm fairly confident the director here, Tina Satter, actually chose Sweeney for this particular trait, because the whole movie is supposed to have this really weird, awkward feeling to it. So it's a really interesting example of a director taking an actor's weakness and turning it into a strength in a certain performance.
I have a back injury, so my max back squat is 195, but I don't...
Still, not shabby.
No, it should not be that close.
What are you talking about? What is going on? So despite the film's short running time, Reality is a very slow burn that actually lacks payoff, which is probably the worst case scenario for a film like this. Because the film is sticking so closely to the audio recordings, it redacts certain information earlier on in the film to stick with both those recordings and to help sort of set up the mystery for later on in the film. While this is a cool trick the first handful of times you see it, it really quickly gets a little infuriating because you just want to know what they're talking about. I mean, you don't know what the files are or what they're accusing her of leaking, and it's meant to set up a sense of mystery and a sense of excitement in the viewer, like, oh my god, this must be some grand conspiracy, I can only imagine what she must have leaked. But in the end, the film just sort of glosses over what actually was leaked and what it was about because it just stops redacting that information. It lets you finally know what it's about. But because you're following the audio recordings and not some carefully curated script, there's no reveal. They just finally let you know. So it gives the reveal no room to breathe. The movie just keeps going and expects you to understand exactly what happened. The hyper-realistic dialogue also really works against the sense of tension because, like I said, rather than slowly building over time, you'll just have these really extended, strange moments of the characters talking about literally nothing, like the cat or what groceries she bought, offering her a cup of water, should we sit on the floor, should we stay standing, why don't you have any furniture?
Now, do you need water or anything? Are you thirsty? You're what? If you need water, shout it out.
Who cares? I do have to give the movie some credit for having such an interesting setup. I just really wanted to understand why everyone was acting so strangely. I figured it was because the classified documents were a lot bigger than what the film and the FBI agents were letting on. To me, it seemed like they were acting so casual and yet so strange to sort of hint at the fact that they know exactly what she did, they just want her to admit it, and that the scale of it is so much bigger than the viewer could possibly imagine. But at the end of the day, it's like leaking any old classified document. It's nothing absolutely mind-blowing, and in fact, the ending of the film takes real-life news footage that sort of highlights how people sort of misunderstood the importance of the reveal. It's like, I get it, yes, people are sort of taking the wrong point from her leaking all of this information. Rather than focusing on the information, they're focusing on the fact that she leaked it. But when the movie itself doesn't give any time for us to focus on the information, it just feels hypocritical. And back to the characters acting so weird being part of such an interesting setup, Sydney Sweeney's character in particular, there was some really weird stuff they were setting up, like the fact she has a pink AR-15, she has a 15-gauge shotgun, she sleeps with a Glock under her bed, they show us her diaries, and the scramblings in there are just, I didn't mean to say scramblings, but the writing in her dialogue really is scramblings. That's a pretty great way to put it. It makes her look pretty insane. And she also has a heavily annotated copy of the Quran on her desk. Like, there's just all this really weird stuff that doesn't go anywhere. In fact, the ending of the movie tries to portray reality as being on the right side of history and as just a perfectly normal girl working for the government who betrayed her, which, putting the politics aside, doesn't really matter how you feel. The movie itself did not set that up well whatsoever by making her seem like such a strange character. Honestly, this movie would have been a lot more interesting if they actually had embellished a little bit and hadn't stuck so closely to reality and been able to have the FBI slowly dial up the heat of their interrogation on her while digging through her house and finding more and more evidence stacking against her. Instead, the FBI agents show up at her house with pretty much all the information they need to know that she's guilty, and they really just want her to confess to make their jobs easier. They downplay the severity of the situation, and they try to just coax her into talking about what exactly she did. And there's an interesting angle to take here, because the FBI is trying to tell her, oh, we know you wouldn't normally do something like this, you're not some evil person, like, just tell us, it'll all be okay, it's not that big of a deal, when in reality, she ends up, no pun intended, she ends up getting the longest prison sentence in US history under whatever the act is called. So overall, this movie really isn't offensively bad or anything like that. It's just a waste of potential with a low budget for an interesting political thriller with a great star attached and just some awful execution. If you saw my previous live stream, I spoke about how I want my reviews to be more positive, but also be a bit more technical, and that when I critique, I don't want it to sound like anger or hatred or anything towards the movie. I want it to be genuine, fair criticism for how the film genuinely could have been better while understanding the intentions of the filmmakers. Honestly, on a technical level, I really don't have that much to say here. Like I said, a lot of the dialogue and the scenes just feel genuinely baffling because I can't understand what they're trying to say with all of the characters acting so strangely. It's such a simple film. It's just three characters in a house. There's nothing really to say about the score or the cinematography or anything like that. It's just a wasted potential of a film. So with all of that said, I'm going to give Reality 2 stars. Yes, I'm using a star system now. I like it better. Deal with it. Despite the fact I don't love this movie, I'm going to praise it for being an hour and 20 minutes because, good golly gosh darn, I am sick of these 2 to 2.5 hour runtimes almost every movie is coming out with. I love The Fall Guy. Why is The Fall Guy 2 hours and 10 minutes? We could have cut that down to hour 45, hour 50 max. Anyway, guys, that's all from me. Hopefully I'm going to get some more reviews up this summer, and otherwise I will be live streaming the launch of Destiny 2: The Final Shape. I'm so excited about this. It's coming out June 4th. It's like the Avengers Endgame of Destiny. I've been a Destiny fan for many, many years now, and now it's like the final chapter is coming out. It's going to be great. I'm going to be live streaming it June 4th. Come back for that if you're interested, and if you're not, otherwise, keep it crispy.